It's a weeknight. You're home, shoes off, telly on, the day basically done. Then there's a knock, firm 3 times. You open the door and there they are, 2 police officers on your step, calm, polite. One of them's already half smiling, and the first words out of his mouth are the line that's walked into thousands of Australian homes. Evening, we've had a call about you. Mind if we come in for a quick chat? Your stomach drops. You can't think of a single thing you've done wrong. But you're a decent person and decent people cooperate, so your hand's already moving. You're already stepping back to let them through. Stop. Think about what is happening right now. Because that friendly little question sitting right there on your own doorstep is one of the most expensive traps in Australian law. Here's the truth almost nobody in this country knows until it's too late. When an officer asks if he can come in, it is very often the clearest sign he does not have the legal right to. That question isn't manners. It's a key. And the second you open the door wide and step aside, you've handed it straight to him. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you one calm sentence you can say through that door that protects your home, without making you look like you've got something to hide. I'll walk you through the actual Australian law behind it. I'll show you the handful of times police genuinely can walk in whether you like it or not, so you know the real difference. And stick around to the end, because there's a second line they use once you don't fling the door wide open. And that follow-up is the one that catches even people who think they already know their rights. I'm Ray Mercer. For years I've worked in and around courtrooms and police stations right across this country, watching how these doorstep moments actually play out. And let me say this plainly right from the start. I am not here to tell you police are the enemy. Most officers are decent people doing a genuinely hard job, and if someone inside that house is in real danger, of course they need to be able to act. I'm here for the grey area, the knock with no warrant, the vague call about you, so that when it lands on your step, you already know exactly where the line sits. Quick note before we go further. This is general legal education, not legal advice, and laws differ a little between states and territories. For your own situation, speak to a qualified solicitor. Now let's talk about what that knock actually is. Your home is not the footpath. Out on the street, the rules work one way. But your front door is one of the strongest lines in Australian law. For your home, the police need one of 3 things to lawfully cross that threshold. They need a warrant. They need a specific power written into legislation that applies right there and then. Or they need your consent, your genuine permission. That's the whole list. No warrant, no power, no consent, no entry. And look closely because we've had a call about you isn't on that list. A tip-off, a report, a concerned neighbor, an anonymous call, none of those on their own is a key to your door. So when an officer stands on your step and asks nicely if he can come in, listen to what he's actually telling you without meaning to. If he had a warrant, he wouldn't be asking, he'd be showing it to you. If he had a power to force entry, he wouldn't be asking either, he'd already be using it. The fact that he's asking is very often the loudest possible clue that he cannot come in unless you let him. The question is the key he doesn't have, and he's hoping you'll hand him yours. And here's the part that catches good, honest, law-abiding people. The ones with genuinely nothing to hide. They think opening the door wide makes them look cooperative, and keeping it shut makes them look guilty. So they step back and say, yeah, of course, come on in. And in that one polite movement, they've given away the single protection the law built into their own home. Because once you consent, once you invite them across that threshold, or simply step back and let the door swing open behind you, it stops mattering that they had no warrant and no power. You gave permission, and permission was all they ever needed. An entry you could have refused becomes an entry you agreed to. So understand this clearly. Keeping your own front door shut is not obstruction, it is not an offense, and it is not evidence of guilt. It is you exercising the one right the law hands you at your own threshold. I want to take the fear out of this because the fear is the entire tactic. A friendly voice on your doorstep works so much better than an aggressive one, for the same reason it does everywhere else in life. Aggression puts people on guard. Friendliness makes people want to please. You don't want to look rude. You don't want the neighbors seeing you argue with a police officer on your own step. So you override every instinct and you invite a stranger into your home that in any other circumstance you never ever would. But your calm no is not rudeness. You can smile. You can be warm. You can talk through the gap in the door. So if you're going to fetch anything at all, step outside first, pull the door shut behind you, and come back to a closed door. Never leave it hanging open with someone standing on the step. Being polite and protecting your threshold are not opposites. You can be the most reasonable person on that street and still keep your door closed. So it's neither the nervous, "Yeah, come in," nor a rude slam in their faces. There's a calm line straight down the middle, and here is the exact sentence that walks it. When those officers ask to come in, you open the door only as far as you need to speak, or you talk through it entirely. I'm not letting you in and I'm not answering questions right now. Do you have a warrant, or is there a specific power that lets you enter? And am I free to close the door? That's the whole sentence. Let's take it apart, because every piece is doing a job. You start with, "I'm not letting you in, and I'm not answering questions right now." Clear, calm, no aggression at all. You are simply declining consent to entry and declining an interview on your own front step. Then the important half. Do you have a warrant, or is there a specific power that lets you enter? This is the polite version of make them show their cards. If they genuinely have a warrant or a real power, they'll name it. And at that point, you don't fight it, you step back, let it happen, and remember every detail for later. But if they've simply been fishing, this is the question with nowhere left to go. They cannot name a power they don't have. And finally, am I free to close the door? This forces the whole situation into the open. Either they're exercising a genuine power over you, in which case they have to be able to say what it is, or you are a free person in your own home who's allowed to say goodnight and shut the door. There is no third option where you simply have to stand there answering questions because they'd like you to. Now let's get into the actual Australian law behind that sentence, because this matters and it's different in every state. In New South Wales, the relevant legislation is the Law Enforcement Powers and Responsibilities Act, generally known as LEPRA. Under that act, police can lawfully enter a private home in three main situations outside of a warrant. First, with genuine informed consent from the occupier. Second, under an emergency power, where they believe on reasonable grounds that someone has suffered a significant injury, or there's an imminent danger of one, or to prevent or end a genuine breach of the peace. Third, to arrest or detain a specific person, or to execute a warrant, where they reasonably believe that person is inside. Queensland, Victoria, and the other states and territories all have their own equivalent legislation with broadly similar structures, an emergency power, an arrest power, and consent, but the exact wording and thresholds differ. That's exactly why a blanket answer never quite works, and why the golden rule stays the same everywhere. Make them name the specific power out loud. Notice what all of those genuine powers have in common. They are serious, specific, and immediate. A vague, "we've had a call about you," with no emergency, no arrest, and no warrant, is none of those three things. So the rule is simple. If they name one of those genuine powers, you comply, and you never physically resist a real power. That only makes things worse. If they can't name one, the door stays shut. And I want to add one honest, responsible word here, because I never want this video to be the reason someone gets hurt. If police are at your door because they're genuinely worried someone inside is in danger, a child, a vulnerable person, someone who's threatened to harm themselves, that is not the moment to argue the finer points of law through a gap in the door. Step outside, let them see everyone is safe, and help them do their job. Everything I'm telling you today is about the vague phishing knock, the call about you with no arrest, no emergency, and no warrant behind it, not about a genuine crisis. Know the difference and use your judgment. And know this too, if police do lawfully arrest someone at your door, that arrest can carry its own separate power to search parts of the home afterwards. An arrest changes the entire situation, which is one more reason to stay calm, say nothing beyond your basic details, and ask for legal advice at the earliest opportunity. Now stay with me, because they don't always just tip their hat and leave after one calm sentence. Let's walk up the ladder together. First push, the smile cools slightly. "Why won't you let us in? If you've got nothing to hide, what's the problem?" That line is engineered to make your closed door feel like guilt. It isn't. You haven't done a single thing wrong by protecting your own home, and your refusal to consent cannot be treated by anyone as though it were a confession. So you don't take the bait and you don't start explaining yourself. You simply repeat calmly, "I'm happy to talk right here, but I'm not letting you in without a warrant or a specific power. Am I free to close the door?" Second push, and this is the real trap I promised you at the start. A clever officer often won't keep arguing about coming inside. Instead, he'll soften, nod, take a friendly step back. and say something like, "That's all right, we don't need to come in. Could you just pop outside for a second?" Or, "Could I just grab your name and date of birth?" And here's why it works. You're so relieved they've stopped trying to get through the door that you agree to the smaller thing just to seem reasonable. That relief is the trap. On your own doorstep, without a specific power actually being exercised, you generally don't have to answer questions at all, so you treat the smaller ask exactly like the big one. "I'd rather not get into it. Am I free to close the door?" Watch one very specific version of this move too, because it catches almost everyone. "No worries, go grab your ID for us then." The instant you turn and walk back inside to fetch something, officers will very naturally, very politely follow you in. Now they're standing in your hallway and you invited them without ever meaning to. So if you're going to fetch anything at all, step outside first, pull the door shut behind you, and come back to a closed door. Never leave it hanging open with someone standing on the step. Third push is the bluff. "Look, we can do this the easy way, or we come back and force the door." If they genuinely had grounds to force entry, they'd be doing it, not bargaining with you on the doorstep. So you don't argue and you don't fold, you stay on the one line. If you've got a power to enter, use it and tell me what it is. If not, I'm going to close the door now. Make them choose. A bluff hates that question. Let me answer a few things you're probably already asking. Can I just not open the door at all? Yes. There is no general legal duty to open your door to police in this country. Talking through it or stepping out yourself is often the calmest way to find out what's happening without giving anything away. Doesn't refusing entry make me look guilty? No. It's a right used by countless innocent people every year, and it cannot be treated as an admission of anything. What if it's genuinely a welfare check? Then stepping outside and letting them see you're safe usually ends things on the spot, without a single officer crossing your threshold at all. And what if they simply walk in anyway without naming a power? Then you don't physically resist, ever. You say clearly, "I do not consent to this entry," you remember exactly what happened, and you take it up afterwards through a formal complaint. You never win that moment by wrestling in your own hallway. You win it later, calmly, with a record of exactly what was said. So let's bring it home, because underneath all the nerves, this is genuinely simple. Your home is the strongest protection you have under Australian law. To lawfully come inside, police need a warrant, a specific legislated power, or your real consent. A vague call about you is none of those three things. So you don't open the door wide, and you don't consent. You talk through the gap, or you step outside yourself. You make them name the warrant or the power out loud. And the moment they can't, you're free to say goodnight and close the door. You never obstruct a genuine power, and you never physically resist. But you also never hand over the key to your own home just because a friendly voice made you feel rude for keeping it. The people who end up in trouble are almost never the ones who calmly said, "Not without a warrant." They're the ones who opened the door wide because staying shut felt impolite. Don't be that person. Be the calm, polite one who already knew exactly where the line sat, right at their own front door. If this helped you understand even one of your rights, send it to one person you actually care about, because someone you know is going to get that knock one evening, tired and caught off guard. And the difference between a 2-minute chat on the step and a stranger walking through their living room is whether they knew this before they ever opened the door. Subscribe, because breaking down exactly this kind of moment is all I do here. I'm Ray Mercer. Know your rights before you need them, and I'll see you in the next one.